Hey guys, Boston Ramos, and this one's gonna be a quick one. We're at the airport right now. We're about to head back home to Miami, but excuse all the background noise. I had found a more quiet place to do. It was like a little kids' room, and then found out I recorded in slow motion and none of the audio captured. So it's just a talking head. So that's pretty frustrating. But you know what's not frustrating? A big Miami Dolphins dub. Let's go. Dolphins won 23-15 against the Rams on Monday Night Football, and you know, big, big, big ups to the defense. The defense limited the Rams to not getting in the end zone, which is absolutely huge after these last couple of games that have been pretty high scoring, and the Dolphins offense has been able to upkeep with the opposing team's output. This time, defense took center stage, did not allow the Rams to get in the end zone, which was absolutely huge. They've been getting their finger pointed at them for the last 2 games or so. So the fact that they were able to come away this matchup feeling good about not letting any of these Rams players have really explosive games, because I'll get into it when I talk about the keys to victory and how the Dolphins achieved those, and if they did or did not. But yeah, it was pretty good all around. Now, let's get into some team stats, which is really important, because in reality, without the defense's help and not allowing the Rams in the end zone, they would have beat this Dolphins team. They were the better team offensively, just not to the point that they were getting the end zone and getting 6 points. That's where these two teams separated. You had the Dolphins who, a little bit of a lackluster offense, but was able to, string a drive together, string 2 drives together, get in the end zone, and really make the key difference here. Because otherwise, Dolphins probably would have not won this game had it not been for the defense limiting the Rams to not getting in the end zone. Now, with that being said, there was 20 first downs for the Rams, 15 for the Miami Dolphins. Let's keep it moving. Third down efficiency, 6 of 13 for the Dolphins, 3 of 12 for the Rams. Neither team had to go for it on 4th down. You could argue that the Rams should have tried one more time before kicking that field goal to get in the end zone and see what could have happened, but that's neither here or there. Let's talk about red zones attempt per made per attempt. Dolphins were 2 of 3 in the red zone, and then the Rams were 0 of 3 in the red zone. So that's where the defense was huge for this Dolphins team. Another thing is penalties. I've been harping for the last 2, 3, maybe even 4 weeks about penalties against this team and them shooting themselves in the foot and looking like a rookie team. This game, the discipline was there. 1 penalty for 15 yards, and that is huge. I will take that all day. Dolphins, that is great. I mean, if you can go through a whole game without any penalties, it's unfathomable. It's unheard of. Leaving a game with 1 penalty for 15 yards, that's not bad at all. Comparison to getting 6+ penalties almost every game. That's awful. You can't be doing that. That's exactly what happened to this Rams team. 6 penalties for 64 total yards. Time of possession favored the Rams in this one, 30 minutes and 12 seconds. Dolphins, 29 minutes and 48 seconds. Aside from that, Rams had 327 total yards of offense. So this is going back to what I was saying, that they were the better team offensively, just not to the point that they were getting the end zone. Dolphins had 238 yards offensively, not so good. Both teams committed 2 turnovers, and it happened in a span of 4 minutes. We're going to get into the stats in a second. Let's get into the highlights. All right, so we're at beautiful SoFi Stadium. Mike McDaniel is facing a former colleague of his in Sean McVay, and you couldn't write it up better. Starting off with a big offensive drive for the Dolphins. Big long pass to Waddle, then followed it up with that end around to Malik Washington. Shout out the rookie getting his first touchdown. And how about Anthony Walker getting an interception here on Matthew Stafford and then hitting the Cam Ward celly. They had to do it. They had to put it on for Florida. Bad week of football for them. Calais Campbell said, "You're not going anywhere, Stafford." Lots of sacks for this Dolphins team. Tua followed it up with an interception, and concerned some people here because he was the one who made the tackle, and he led with his head first, so that was a bit chaotic there. But following Rams' drive, Kyren Williams, ball pops out, Kendall Fuller comes out and gets it. Kyren Williams knows, not so good, but Jared Verse and that Rams defensive line has got them, and they got the ball back. Jared Verse has been quite the rookie sensation for this Rams team, and filling in a void that has been left by Aaron Donald. But yeah, Tua's not happy, but Jared Verse, look at that man's eyes. Oh man, but fumbles was a pretty, key thing in this matchup. The ball was flying out everywhere. Stafford was able to get on top of his own fumble. Look at the false start slightly by 50. It pushes the Rams back, and it forces the Rams kicker, Joshua Carty, to miss the field goal because he gets just out of range, and it just goes a little bit to the right. This man's face says it all. It's too good. Oh, man. But how about big play Jonnu Smith making the defender fly? Absolutely love to see that out of Jonnu, and just short of getting in the end zone. But luckily, Tyreek Hill ends his longest drought of his career without scoring a touchdown. He went 9 weeks without scoring a touchdown. Well, technically 8 weeks, but it's the longest of his career. So Tua's pleased, Tyreek's pleased, as you can tell by that celebration. And that would be the end of pretty much the scoring for the Dolphins. Lots of field goals after that for the Fins. But Cooper Kupp, let me see that one more time. Extend for me. Get one hand on it. That was actually like a beautiful grab by Cooper Kupp. How about Javon Holland coming back and getting a sack here? Big time, pushing the Rams back and out of field goal range. And then, following Dolphins drive, Tua unfortunately takes a big sack here on second down, 3rd and long for the Dolphins, but this is what you need from Tua. Improvising plays and finding Raheem Mostert, and who gets, a playmaking ability and gets it downfield. Stafford fumbles the snap, and Jordan Brooks is all over him. Biggest play of the game, and it comes by none other than Zach Sealer with a batted ball at the line of scrimmage. Kyron Williams would have had a lot of room to run in that play, and that would have really helped the Rams drive. They were able to get down the field eventually, but that was a key play there. Duke Riley jumping on top of the onside kick, and Jalen Ramsey's hype getting a win against his former team, and Mike McDaniel is thrilled to be a former colleague in Sean McVay. So big time win for this Dolphins team. They needed it on primetime football Monday night, and against a pretty reputable team in the Rams, who were coming into this matchup at 4-4, and they are fighting for a top spot in their division. Dolphins are fighting to stay alive, and I think the Dolphins just wanted it more. That's just how it felt. One thing I will say is the crowd there at SoFi Stadium for the Rams. I don't know how it is for the Chargers, but I will speak for the Rams. It was loud. They got that stadium rocking, and those fans were like excruciatingly so loud, especially on 3rd downs. Even on 2nd down, I'm like, God, my watch, the Apple Watch, lets you know when you're in a loud environment. And it let me know like pretty much all games, like, hey, you're in a loud environment, you want to protect your ears. My ears, I'm going to be deaf in a couple of years, because if I keep on going to games like that, it's going to be so freaking loud. All right, so went over the team stats. We went over through the highlight. And last but not least, we're going to go through the overall stats, like the individual stats. I'm going to run through these really quick because I don't know if the audio's pretty bad in the sense that you guys are getting a lot of this background noise. But really quick, leading and passing, we got Tua going 20 of 28, 207 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, sacked 3 times for a loss of 36 yards. Those sacks were bad, and a lot of them were coverage sacks. So if you don't know what coverage sacks means, this means there was nobody open. There was no one that he could throw to. So I would say about 2 of those 3 sacks were coverage sacks that, Tua could just, if he throws the ball there, he's probably throwing an interception. So sometimes taking the sack there, yes, you're taking negative yardage, but you're not, forcing the ball in a spot where it could be like a turnover-worthy play. Most of the time, Tua likes to throw these tough passes that, could be sometimes a 50-50 ball and hope your receiver comes down with it. Luckily, he wasn't putting himself in that position. Yeah, you don't want him to take those big hits, but at the same time, you don't want him to be just throwing the ball all willy-nilly. So in that sense, I think Tua did a good job, and he was the focal point of this offense because this offense was pretty lackluster in this matchup, which I'll get into in a second. But we got Matthew Stafford, who went 32 of 46, 293 total yards, and he had no touchdowns, 1 interception, sacked 4 times for a loss of 36 total yards. Going to the Dolphins' rushing attack, wasn't a great game on the ground. 67 total yards for 22 attempts. Dolphins were averaging 3 yards per carry, which in the grand scheme of things, 3 yards per carry is regarded as not so bad, but the numbers are inflated because you have a 18-yard carry for the touchdown from Malik Washington. If you take that out of the picture, not a good game on the ground at all for this Dolphins team. You had 37 yards from your leading carrier in Devon Achane. You didn't even let Raheem Mostert run the ball a single time in this game. And then you have Jalen Wright, ran the ball 5 times for a total of 3 yards. So it just wasn't a good game on the ground for the Dolphins. And that was a big reason why they weren't able to have this massive offensive output. And, yes, Tua can throw the ball as much as he wants, but he needs, a little bit of help on the rushing attack. You can't be rushing 12 times for 7 yards. You can't, I understand Raheem Mostert has been fumble prone, but you can't, take him out of these situations and expect, the offense to be better. You need to put him in the position to be, running the ball and making a difference on the offense side of the ball. Rams, 18 carries for 70 yards total. Kyron Williams led that with 15 carries of 62 total yards, but didn't even get, past a 10-yard run. So, the Dolphins were able to stifle their running game and, get in the backfield and put some pressure on Stafford, which I'll talk about in a minute. Really quick passing game. Dolphins, Tua connected with 9 different receivers, so not too inflated in terms of high receptions for players here, but Waddle got acclimated. He got 3 receptions for 57 total yards. Johnny Smith had that big 33-yard reception. A lot of big plays out of this Dolphins offense. Aside from that, it was very lackluster in terms of the overall production. You had a lot of big chunk plays by these Finns. Raheem Mostert had a reception for 25. Malik Washington had a reception for 17. Tyreek had a reception for 12, but aside from that, he had 16 total yards. So that kind of tells you, what was going on offensively. Like, had some of these big chunk plays, but then in the flip side, didn't have much else going on. So they had 207 total receiving yards off of 20 receptions. So not the worst, but not the best. I'll take that and a win, anytime, but got to be a little bit better, especially if you're an offense that is aspiring to be one of the top ones in the NFL. The Rams had a big game receiving. Puka Nacua had 9 receptions for 98 total yards. Cooper Kupp had 7 total for 80 total yards. Aside from that, you had guys 5 catches and under, and they had 35 or less yards. Let's talk about the fumbles. Dolphins, Tua had a fumble, and it was recovered by Jared Verse. Kyron Williams had a fumble, recovered by Kendall Fuller, and Matthew Stafford had 2 fumbles. He was able to get on top of both. Aside from that, shout out Kendall Fuller for getting that big-time recovery. He eventually ended up leaving the game with a concussion, so hoping everything is okay with him. It looked like he kind of just got slammed on the dirt by his own teammate, which is very unfortunate. You hate to see friendly fire. Going to run through the defensive stats really quick. Jordan Brooks was the leading tackler for the Dolphins with 11 total, 6 solo. He had 1 tackle for a loss, 1 pass deflection, accredited to Anthony Walker. And then other key stats, Kendall Fuller, 1 pass deflection. Zach Sealer, 1 tackle for a loss, 1 pass deflection, 1 QB hit. Calais Campbell, 1 sack, 1 tackle for a loss, 2 pass deflections, 1 QB hit. Devon Holland, 1 sack, 1 tackle for a loss, 1 QB hit. Quinton Bell, 1 sack, 1 tackle for a loss. Chop Robinson, 1 sack, 1 tackle for a loss, 2 QB hits, and a QB hit by Neil Farrell. For the Los Angeles Rams, Omar Speights had 8 total, 6 solo, 1 tackle for a loss. And then keeping it moving in key stats, we have Colby Turner with 1 sack, 1 tackle for a loss, 1 pass deflection, 1 QB hit. Jared Verse with 1 sack, 2 tackles for a loss, 1 QB hit. Byron Young with 1 sack, 2 tackles for a loss, and 2 QB hits. Christian Roseboom had 1 pass deflection and a interception, returned for 16 yards. Bobby Brown, the third, had a tackle for a loss. Kobe Durant had a tackle for a loss, and Jonah Williams had a tackle for a loss. And those are the key defensive stats for the Rams. I also forgot to mention Anthony Walker's interception. He had an interception return for 5 yards. Kick returns, we had Jordan Whittington, 1 return for 25, and Xavier Smith 1 return for 15. Punt returns, Malik Washington had 3 returns for 21 yards. Rams did not return a punt. Jason Sanders had 3 punts, 3 field goals for 3 for 3 on field goals, longest of 50, and then 2 for 2 on extra points. Good day, Jason Sanders. Joshua Kelly went 5 for 6 on field goals, longest of 55. Did not kick a single extra point, as I mentioned before. No touchdowns for them. And then punting, Jake Bailey had 3 punts for 134 yards. 1 was in the 20, longest of 51. And then for the Rams, Ethan Evans had 3 punts for 148 total yards, and 2 of which in the 20, longest of 51. And that pretty much sums up the stats. So with, going through all those stats, the Dolphins did not do great in terms of the, what's it called? The overall just makeup of like formulating a win, making the win look nice. Yes, 100%. But at the end of the day, they won, and that is the main ultimate goal, and that is what this team needs to strive for, and hopefully put themselves in position to do a little bit more of. And it starts with being pretty good right now on offense. I wish to see a better running game. I wish to see more production out of Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. But the defense came to play, and they were the key factor on why this Dolphins team left SoFi Stadium with a win. So shout out to the defense. Now, let's talk about what were the keys to victory and how the Dolphins either did or did not achieve them. So the first key to victory was get Waddle and get Tyreek Hill acclimated, get them moving, get them to receptions, get the yards up. Waddle did a pretty good job of that. I will say, he did lead the team in receiving yards at 57 and 3 receptions. Meanwhile, Tyreek Hill, 3 receptions, 16 yards, but he also got a touchdown. So, it's a little bit of a double-edged sword. Like, they did enough to help with what the Dolphins needed, but they weren't these guys who were being game breakers. Now, I will say the defensive coverage by the Rams was pretty good. They were shifting their coverage, and, it was like they were playing their zones really well. Like, guys were bouncing from one area to the other and picking up guys if they came into their zone. So, shout out to that Rams defense. They did not make it easy for this passing game for the Dolphins. Now, defensively, one of my main ones was put pressure on Matthew Stafford. Dolphins knocked that one out of the park. They had 6 pressures on Stafford, and then 4 of those resulted in sacks. So, you gotta love seeing that happen, because if not, I think this is a completely different game. So the pass rush came to play, and there was a huge deciding factor in this matchup. Stafford was very uneasy in that backfield, and it very, very much so benefited the Dolphins. And it took some pressure off the secondary, who, you can argue is struggling a little bit. Aside from that, the secondary. Again, we'll just stay on the secondary. I also mentioned that they need to limit Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. Now, did they achieve that one? I would say no. But in the grand scheme of things, didn't let them eclipse 100 yards, either one of them. Did not allow either one of those guys to, get a touchdown, so on and so forth. They, threw their best punch, and, it hit those guys. It didn't knock them out, but it hit them because, you had Puka went 9 of 98 and Cooper Kupp 7 of 80. So in the grand scheme of things, those are pretty good numbers for those guys. But you don't have them going in the end zone. They're not eclipsing 100 yards, even though Puka was right there. He just needs an extra step or two, and he gets 100 yards. So yeah, for sure. Did not achieve it. If you want to be very factual, but I think they did a really good job of limiting those guys and not making those guys be the ones that were making the key difference in this game. I think the massive difference was getting sacks, and that's something this pass rush has not been doing all season long. This is the first time in a game that they've had 4 sacks this season. So it was a very good defensive output. Offense did enough to help the win. So that's the Dolphins' second road win. It brings them at 3-6, and it sets them up for quite the playoff push. Now, it's hard to say, 3-6 Dolphins playoffs. Listen, 3-6. They're in the 10th seed right now. They're behind a 4-6 Bengals team who, just pretty good team, just not getting anything in their favor. You have a 4-6 Indianapolis Colts team. Should have won that game first and foremost. Second of all, they're in the 8th spot and they may be sliding down. We'll just have to wait and see what happens to them. Broncos 5-5. They are currently the 7th seed, and it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough to knock one of those teams out. But what benefits the Dolphins is that the team that's ahead of them, the Los Angeles Chargers, is in their division. They're 6-3, and they just as much want to vie for a spot at one, the AFC West, but obviously a playoff spot. So I think those two teams may consume one another and have problems and make one or the other drop. So let's hope that's the case. And then you have the Baltimore Ravens right now sitting outside the division at 7-3 after Pittsburgh got a huge win at 7-2. So that's the playoff standings as is. But they're making it work, and it's not completely out of reach yet. But the further and further we get away from it, the worse it will be. So sitting at 3-6, not ideal, but given week-to-week basis, this is exactly where the Dolphins want to be right now. A big win on Monday Night Football. Moving forward, they do have a matchup against the Las Vegas Raiders, and then the Patriots, Packers, Jets. Those are the next 4 games. If the Dolphins can come out of those games 4-0, you can pretty much book that they could possibly make the playoffs. Because I'm assuming some of these other teams ahead of the Dolphins are going to drop. I would pretty much book that Pittsburgh and Baltimore, if they don't implode or they don't, eat each other alive, those two teams are going to make the playoffs. Now, the last 2 playoff spots between the Chargers and the Broncos, one of those teams has got to go. Just because they are a less experienced team, I would put the Broncos as a team that gets out. But let's just see what happens. That's just my estimation for right now. But hey, big win for the Dolphins, 3-6. It was a bad loss for the Rams because that puts them at 3rd place in the division after Arizona just improved to 6-4, San Fran 5-4, Rams 4-5, Seattle 4-5 as well. And then for the AFC East, it's gone. The Bills are 8-2, but the Dolphins are in 2nd place at 3-6, in front of the New York Jets and the New England Patriots, who are both at 3-7. So that pretty much sums up this game, post-game review. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.